Hello everyone, welcome back to Marcelliano MMA. Today we are going to be breaking down UFC 329 for the main card. The fights this consists of are King Green vs Terence McKinney, Brandon Royval vs Kavanagh, Corey Sandhagen vs Mario Bautista, BSD vs Paddy and Conor McGregor vs Max Holloway. And we are going to be starting with King Green vs Terence McKinney. I want to add something. My records, when I wrote the script, I was looking at outdated records. My records are wrong by like 2 to 3 fights. That is 100% a big mistake on me. Doesn't change any of my predictions. It won't happen again. I was just looking at outdated stuff and going through tape, looking through fighters, researching them. So all the correct predictions will be here. I mean, all the correct records will be here. But what I'm saying, the records are just going to be off by a few fights. I apologize greatly for that. I don't expect this fight to go the distance. You've got Green, he's one of the slickest and most experienced boxers in the lightweight division, against McKinney, who's one of the fastest starters in the division. In the UFC in general, to be honest, Green is going to want to drag this into a longer technical fight where he can make reads and take over as the fight goes on. McKinney is going to want to make this fight chaotic from the opening bell and not give Green the chance to settle in. I think this fight comes down to whether if Green can survive the early pressure or if McKinney can capitalize before Green gets into a rhythm. Looking at Green, he's 5'10 with a 71-inch reach and comes into this fight with a 32-17-1 record. He's been fighting at the highest level for years and has shared the cage with some of the best lightweights in the world. His experience is one of the biggest advantages because there aren't many styles he hasn't seen before. On the feet, Green is one of the slickest boxers in the division. He fights with his hands low, has excellent head movement, and relies heavily on his timing and reactions. He'll make opponents miss, counter them, and slowly frustrate them as the fight goes on. He doesn't have huge one-shot power, but he lands clean and wins exchanges with accuracy and experience. Wrestling-wise, Green has solid takedown defense and is very good at scrambling back to his feet. He isn't someone who's going to offensively wrestle much, but he's experienced enough to make grapplers work for every position. The biggest concern with Green is he can be a slow starter. He likes to make reads, and against someone like McKinney, that's dangerous because McKinney is at his best in the opening minutes. Another concern is durability. Green has taken a lot of damage throughout his career, and at this stage, every clean shot can become more important than it would have a few years ago. Now looking at McKinney, he's 5'10 with a 73-inch reach, and comes into this fight with a 17-7 record. He's one of the most explosive fighters in the whole UFC, and almost every one of his fights ends early. Whether it's a striking or wrestling, McKinney is constantly looking for the finish. On the feet, McKinney is incredibly dangerous early. He throws everything with power, closes distance quickly, and once he hurts his opponents, he does a great job swarming for the finish. He's not interested in fighting a slow technical fight, he wants to overwhelm opponents before they can get comfortable. Wrestling-wise, McKinney is just as dangerous. He's explosive on his entries, has high-level wrestling, and once he gets on top, he's constantly looking for submissions or ground and pound. TKO. That's what makes him so difficult to prepare for, because opponents have to respect both the striking and wrestling from the opening bell. The biggest concern with McKinney has always been his gasting. He puts so much into the first round that if he doesn't get the finish, his output can slow down. Against someone like Green, that's always something to keep in mind, because Green has made a career out of surviving early and making opponents fade. One thing I think is going to be huge in this matchup is Green's tendency to fight with his hands low. That style has worked because of his reactions and experience, but against someone as explosive as McKinney, every mistake is amplified. McKinney doesn't need many openings to end a fight, and Green has been hurt by explosive punches before. The biggest question in this fight is whether Green can make McKinney fight at his pace. If this gets into the second and third round, I think Green starts having success, but I think that's a big if. McKinney is one of the fastest starters in the division, and Green has shown recently that he can be vulnerable early before he's had time to settle in the fight. I do think McKinney gets it done. I expect McKinney to come out aggressively from the opening bell, mixing his striking with the threat of his wrestling, and forcing Green to defend immediately. Green will probably have moments if he survives the early pressure, but I think McKinney's explosiveness, speed, and ability to finish fights are enough to catch Green before he can really get into his rhythm. I have Terence McKinney winning this fight around 60% of the time, and I think the most likely outcome is a first round TKO or submission with a lean on KO. Do I want to say KO? Yeah, I think a KO is more likely than a submission. I like to save these videos to later in the week so that I can watch the weigh-in. And a lot of people are saying Terence McKinney looked bad. I don't think he looked the worst. I don't like how good Green looks. Green looks really good. But yeah, time for Brandon Royval versus Loner Kavanagh. It's a clash between an established veteran and one of the more promising young fighters in the division. I love Loner Kavanagh, even though he made me lose my bet against Moreno. Royval is one of the most dangerous and unpredictable fighters in UFC. Someone who thrives in chaos, scrambles, and creates openings through his aggression. Kavanagh is a younger, more technical fighter who's going to want a cleaner fight where he can use his striking speed and composure. I think this fight comes down to whether Royval can force Kavanagh into the type of messy fight he likes, or if Kavanagh can stay composed and punish Royval's aggression. Looking at Royval, he's 5'9" with a 68-inch reach and comes into this fight with a 17-7 record. He's one of the most entertaining fighters in the flyweight division because he fights with an extremely high pace and is always looking for the finish. His style has given some of the best fighters in the world problems because he doesn't fight like a traditional opponent. On the feet, Royval is extremely aggressive and unpredictable. He throws with a lot of volume, uses awkward moments, and constantly pressures forward. His biggest strength is that he makes opponents uncomfortable because they never know exactly where the next attack is coming from. Wrestling-wise, Royval is one of the most dangerous submission threats in this division. He isn't a traditional dominant wrestler, but his ability to scramble, attack submissions, and create dangerous positions is elite. Even if he loses a position, he is constantly looking for a way to turn the fight around. The biggest concern with Royval is that his style also creates a lot of openings. He takes risks, leaves himself open during exchanges, and has shown throughout his career that he can be hurt. Against someone with the technical ability of Kavanagh, those mistakes could become a major factor. Looking at Loner Kavanagh, he's one of the more exciting young prospects in the flyweight division, if not the most. He has both style around speed, technical striking, and composure. Unlike Royval, who wants the fight to become chaotic, Kavanagh is more comfortable fighting at a controlled pace where he can break his opponents down. On the feet, Kavanagh has the cleaner striking. He uses his movement well, he throws accurate combinations, and does a better job staying defensively responsible. Against someone like Royval, who's constantly moving forward, being able to stay patient and land the cleaner shots is extremely important. Wrestling-wise, the biggest test is going to be the biggest test for Kavanagh, especially this missing game. Submission. Oh my, submission. There we go. The biggest test for Kavanagh is doing the Royval submission game and scrambles. He doesn't necessarily need to dominate every grappling exchange, but he has to get stuck in dangers, avoid getting stuck. Oh, I can't reach for this one. Yada yada. If he can defend the majority of Royval's attacks and get back to striking, I think this heavily favors him. So the biggest question for Kavanagh is whether he can handle the experience gap. Royval has fought the best fighters in the division, has been in extremely difficult situations. Kavanagh is the more technically polished fighter, but this is the type of fight where experience under pressure matters. The biggest question in this fight is... I wrote it twice, oh my gosh. I'm struggling for this one. The biggest question in this fight is whether Royval's chaos creates opportunities for him or creates opportunities for Kavanagh. I think Royval is dangerous, but his aggressive style could actually play into Kavanagh's strength. If Kavanagh can stay calm, avoid getting dragged into unnecessary exchanges, and make Royval pay for his openings, I think he has a great chance to win. I think Loner Kavanagh gets it done. I expect Royval to have success early because of his pressure and unpredictability are difficult for anyone to deal with. But over the course of the fight, I trust Kavanagh's cleaner striking, speed, and defensive discipline more. I think Royval will give him opportunities by taking risks, and Kavanagh is good enough to capitalize on those mistakes. I have Loner Kavanagh winning this around 55 to 60% of the time, and I think most likely outcome is a decision or a late finish. Leaning towards a decision, to be honest. Royval is always dangerous because of his submission ability, but if Kavanagh keeps his fight technical, I think he has the tools to get the win. Alright, now going to Corey Sandhagen versus Royval Bautista. And I'm picking Corey Sandhagen because I'm a white dude. No, I'm joking. It's a clash between one of the most creative strikers in the division and one of the most consistent, well-rounded fighters. Sandhagen is the longer, more technical fighter who likes to control distance, create openings, and fight at his own pace, while Bautista is a more pressure-based fighter who relies on volume, toughness, and a complete MMA game. I think this fight comes down to whether Bautista can make this a physical, high-paced fight, or if Sandhagen can keep the fight at range and use his technical advantages. Looking at Corey Sandhagen, he's 5'11" with a 70-inch reach and comes in this fight with a 17-5 record. He's one of the most unique fighters in the bantamweight division because of his combination of length, movement, and creativity. He has fought some of the best fighters in the world and has shown that he can compete with high-level competition. On the feet, Sandhagen is one of the most difficult fighters to prepare for. He uses movement, he'll switch stances and mix in kicks. He creates openings with his timing. He's not just a volume striker, he uses range and unpredictabilities to make opponents react before they even get comfortable. One thing that I really like about Sandhagen is his ability to adjust during fights. He doesn't always start fights looking perfect, but he makes reads and changes his approach as the fight progresses. His fight IQ is one of the biggest strengths because he understands how to exploit what opponents give him. Now, wrestling-wise, Sandhagen has improved a lot throughout his career. He's not someone who's going to dominate opponents with wrestling, but he has solid defensive wrestling and uses his grappling intelligently. Against someone like Bautista, being able to stay off the cage and avoid long control sequences will be extremely important. The biggest concern with Sandhagen is his willingness to take risks. Because he fights so creatively, he can sometimes leave openings defensively. Against a durable pressure fighter like Bautista, mistakes could allow Bautista to build momentum. Looking at Royval Bautista, he's 5'10" with a 73-inch reach, and comes in this fight with a 16-2 record. He's one of the most underrated fighters in the bantamweight division, because he always doesn't get attention of the bigger names, but he has consistently found ways to win against high-level opponents. On the feet, Bautista is a technical but aggressive striker. He does a good job combining his boxing with kicks, keeping a steady pace, and forcing opponents to work. He isn't as flashy as Sandhagen, but he is very efficient and doesn't waste much. Wrestling-wise, this is where Bautista can make fights interesting, unless you're Jose Aldo. He has a strong grappling foundation, good takedowns, and the ability to mix in wrestling with his striking. His pressure isn't just about throwing punches, he wants his opponents thinking about multiple threats at once. The biggest concern with Bautista is dealing with Sandhagen's movement and range. Sandhagen is extremely difficult to pressure because he doesn't stay in front of opponents for long. If Bautista struggles to get off the cage, he could spend a lot of time chasing. One thing I think is going to be huge in this matchup is the pace. Bautista is going to want to make this a fight where Sandhagen constantly has to defend, move, and work. Sandhagen is the more creative fighter, but Bautista's consistency and pressure can make this fight harder than they look on paper. The biggest question in this fight is whether Bautista can force Sandhagen into his style of fight. If Sandhagen gets to stay at range and dictate exchanges, I think his skill set will be a major problem. But if Bautista can pressure him, mix in takedowns, and make every minute competitive, he has a very real chance. I think Corey Sandhagen does get it done though. I expect Bautista to make this competitive because he's durable, disciplined, and has enough wrestling to create problems. But over 3 rounds, I trust Sandhagen's length, creativity, and ability to adjust more. I think he lands the cleaner shots, avoids enough of Bautista's pressure, and wins the majority of the important exchanges. I have Corey Sandhagen winning about 65% of the time, and I think the most likely outcome is a decision. Bautista is good enough to make this close, but Sandhagen's striking variety and fight IQ give him the advantage. Now going on to Benoit Saint-Denis versus Paddy Pimblett. It's a clash between one of the most dangerous pressure fighters in this division and one of the most dangerous submission fighters. Yes, I'm saying Paddy Pimblett is a dangerous submission fighter. Stop the hate on him. So Saint-Denis is going to want to make this a physical fight, constantly pressure forward, mix and takedowns, and overwhelm Paddy with pace. Pimblett is going to want to survive those exchanges, force scrambles, and use his submission ability to create openings. I think this fight comes down to whether Saint-Denis can constantly control Paddy, or if Paddy can turn into one of the chaotic grappling exchanges into a finishing opportunity. Looking at BSD, he's 5'11", 73-inch reach, comes in this fight 17-3 record. 8-fight win streak? Correct? I believe so. I don't think he lost. 8-fight win streak. He's one of the most aggressive fighters in the light division and has built his reputation around constant pressure, physicality, and finishing ability. He doesn't like slow fights. He wants to make his opponents uncomfortable from the opening bout. On the feet, Saint-Denis is extremely dangerous. He throws powerful combinations, attacks the body, and constantly walks opponents down. He isn't the most technical striker in the division, but his aggression and ability to keep opponents reacting make him difficult to deal with. Wrestling-wise, this is where Saint-Denis has the biggest advantage. He has strong takedowns, excellent top control, and does a great job mixing in his striking and grappling together. Opponents cannot focus only on his punches because every exchange can turn into a wrestling sequence. The biggest concern with Saint Denis is that his aggressive style can create opportunities. I just looked it up. BSD's only on a 4-fight win streak. Where'd I get 8 from? I think I'm mixing it up with Red Ganja. But yeah, 4-fight win streak. That's why if I was learning for a bit, I was looking it up. So, yeah, the biggest concern with Saint Denis is his aggressive style can create openings. He pushes forward constantly and sometimes puts himself into dangerous positions. Against a fighter like Paddy, who's extremely dangerous in scrambles and submissions, those mistakes could become a major problem. Looking at Paddy now, he's 6'1" with a 73-inch reach and comes in his fight with a 23-3 record. He's one of the most talked about fighters in UFC, but his biggest strength has always been his grappling. He thrives when his fights become messy and unpredictable, unless your name is Justin Gaethje. On the feet, Paddy's definitely not as technical as Saint Denis. His style is awkward. He uses unusual movement, he throws attacks from different angles, and is comfortable fighting in uncomfortable situations. Comfortable fighting in uncomfortable situations. That's funny, right? He doesn't always win exchanges with clean technique, but he creates moments where his opponents can make mistakes. Wrestling-wise, this is Paddy has his best chance, more so in jiu-jitsu rather than the wrestling itself. His submission game is extremely dangerous, especially when his opponents give him opening during transitions. He has strong jiu-jitsu, dangerous back attacks, and the ability to finish fights quickly if he gets the right position. The biggest concern is that Saint Denis is probably the toughest stylistic matchup he could get. Paddy's takedown defense has always been a question throughout his UFC career, and Saint Denis is the type of fighter who constantly tests that weakness. One thing I think is going to be huge in this matchup is the grappling transitions. Saint Denis is likely going to have success getting the fight to the ground, but the question is, what happens once he gets there? He wants to have control and damage, but every scramble creates an opportunity for Paddy to attack submission. So the biggest question in this fight is whether Saint Denis can control the chaos. If he stays disciplined and avoids getting Paddy openings, I think he has the clear advantage. But if he gets too aggressive, starts chasing finishes, and leaves his position, Paddy is one of the few fighters who can make him pay. I think Paddy Pimblett gets it done. I understand why Saint Denis is the favorite. His pressure wrestling and finishing ability create a nightmare matchup on paper. But I think Paddy's durability, submission threat, and ability to survive dangerous positions, oh my gosh, give him a path that people are overlooking. I got Paddy by submission, honestly. I think Saint Denis has moments where he dominates, but eventually his aggression creates an opening, and Paddy finds the submission there. I have Paddy winning this fight around 50 to 55% of the time, and I think the most likely outcome is a submission. Saint Denis is the more reliable fighter minute to minute, but Paddy also has the type of skill set that can completely change the fight with one mistake. Yeah, now it's time for the final fight. If you're just tuning in for this, I hope you liked my breakdown. It's the best breakdown on all of YouTube, that's a promise. So, Conor McGregor vs Max Holloway. Both fighters have gone in completely different directions since their first meet-in. McGregor has always been one of the most dangerous first-round finishers in the sport, relying on timing, precision, and explosive power. Holloway has developed into one of the best volume strikers in MMA history. Someone who gets stronger as fight continues and can overwhelm opponents with pace. I think this fight comes down to whether McGregor can finish early or if Holloway survives the opening danger and takes over. Looking at Conor McGregor, he's 5'9", 74-inch reach, and has built a career around elite counter-striking, and his biggest weapons have always been his timing, distance control, and ability to punish opponents when they make mistakes. On the feet, McGregor is one of the most accurate and dangerous strikers MMA has seen. His left hand is the biggest weapon because of how quickly he can read opponents and create knockout opportunities when McGregor is fresh. His speed and precision are difficult to deal with. However, the biggest concern with McGregor is what happens after the early rounds. His style heavily relies on explosiveness, and when opponents can survive his best attacks, his output and effectiveness have historically dropped. Against someone like Holloway, who has elite cardio and constant increases his pressure throughout the fight, that's a major problem. And I'm gonna mention it just once. McGregor's been gone from the UFC for 5 years. He's been doing drugs. He's had an injury. I'm taking that in account into who I think will win, but not in the fight breakdown. I'm doing the fight breakdown in a sense of what can these fighters do, not in the sense of what has happened to these fighters. But don't worry, when I predict the winner, I do take into account there. So wrestling wise, this is an interesting development because there have been signs McGregor may look to mix in more grappling. The issue is that wrestling for Holloway for extended periods is extremely demanding. If McGregor can't maintain control, he could end up using a lot of energy while still having to deal with Holloway's pace later. And some people are saying McGregor submission. If Charles do Bronx Oliveira couldn't submit Max, McGregor definitely isn't. Looking at Max now, 5'11", 69-inch reach, and he's built his career up around being one of the most durable and high-volume strikers in UFC history. He has fought some of the best fighters in the world and has shown he can survive dangerous moments while continuing to push forward. On the feet, Holloway's the nightmare matchup for someone like McGregor. If the fight gets past the early rounds, he uses combinations, pressure, and volume to slowly break opponents down. He doesn't need one perfect moment. He creates hundreds of difficult moments throughout the fight. One of Holloway's biggest advantages is his durability. He has shown an ability to take elite level shots and continue fighting at a high pace. Against someone like McGregor, who relies heavily on landing the perfect counter, Holloway's ability to survive could completely change the fight. Wrestling wise, Holloway is not known for dominating his opponents, but he is extremely difficult to break mentally and physically. He has fought elite grapplers and maybe elite grappler, I don't know about plural, and has shown strong defensive awareness. If McGregor is unable to keep him controlled, Holloway's cardio is a major factor. The biggest question in this fight is whether McGregor can still get Holloway out of there early, because if he cannot, I think the matchup starts becoming heavily one-sided. Holloway is the type of fighter who becomes more dangerous as the opponents slow down, while McGregor has historically become less effective. I think Max Holloway gets it done. I understand why McGregor is dangerous because of his first round knockout ability is always there. However, I think Holloway's durability, cardio, and pace are too much. If McGregor chooses to grapple, I think it makes the fight worse for him because it requires energy against one of the best conditioned fighters in MMA. Now, a few things I should notice. The fight's at 170. The weigh-ins, they weigh about the same. Maybe McGregor looks a bit leaner. I like the way Holloway put on his weight. Like I said, McGregor's been out of this forever. Say what you want about the press conference. I don't know why Max wore that. Max looked so goofy. You can say, oh, he flinched when Conor slapped him. I didn't care about none of that. Don't overthink it. I trained MMA. You can't stay away from it for half a decade, 5 years. I don't care if he was maybe training a bit, if he was boxing a bit. Drug usage, being away from the sport, all of that, injury. Holloway's winning. I have Max Holloway winning this fight around 80%, if not 85% of the time. And I think the most likely outcome is a late finish in dominant fashion. It's not going to decision. McGregor can't survive that long. McGregor's best chance is an early knockout. But if Holloway survives that opening danger, I think he takes over and breaks him down as the fight continues. Best bet, Holloway KO rounds 3 to 4. Plus 350 right now. I'm playing it safe. I'm taking rounds 2 to 4, just in case something happens in the second round. But yeah, that is going to wrap up for the main card. If I slurred a little bit or read fast a bit, it's because I need to get this video out. The fight is tomorrow and I have got stuff to do, so yeah, I had to hurry up and get this done. I'm gonna do the whole card video today also. I hope you guys did enjoy, and that's going to be it for today's video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and thank you for viewing. If you disagree or agree, make sure to leave a comment below, and I hope you tune into Marcelliano MMA in the future. I'll see you guys all later. Goodbye.